I'd like to call the East Brandywine Township Board of Supervisors PM meeting Thursday, October 19th, 2023 to order here. It says 6:30 p.m. I want to remind everybody a recording device will be in use during the meeting. Let's open with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under public comment for agenda items, the rules for conduct of public meetings established by Resolution 2001-08. The time allocated to each individual making a comment shall be 3 minutes unless otherwise set by the presiding officer. Additional public comment may be granted at the discretion of the presiding officer at the conclusion of the meeting. And as I've done in all meetings, I've set 3 minutes. Is there any public comment?
I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
My name is Francis Taraski. I live at 300 North Buck Road. And what I want to comment on is item number C of the ordinance and resolutions for consideration. And what's being proposed here is that under the R1 and R2 development districts, the residential cluster be reduced by approximately 10 to 15% over what you can build now. So I want you to think about that. And this affects about 30 property owners in the township. And what you're essentially proposing is that you're going to take 10 to 15% away from someone's retirement or nest egg. For some of these people, property is what they have. That's their retirement. And I want you to think about if we were to pass an ordinance that said we're going to tax everyone's retirement fund 10 to 15%. How would you feel about that? That's what this ordinance essentially does. If it suggests that, it's a harsh penalty to impose on any resident simply because they own property that may have development potential in this township. I understand the tools for open space, but this to me is not one of them. If we want open space, we need to buy it, not manipulate the zoning for it. It's an unfair way of going about it. 30 years ago, when I was much younger, I didn't want to see any of the township developed. I didn't want to see the county developed. We were able to reach some of the people back then. We had a couple people that came forward and put their property in open space on their own before the township had a program. Many of the township residents were anticipating the bypass being finished and development coming up 322, and there's nothing you can do about that. And what I want everyone to understand is that I am a strong advocate for open space, and I'm committed to open space. I've been that my entire life, and I never wanted to see the township changed. But there, again, nothing we can do about that. I'm not interested in seeing zoning imposed on our residents. It's a harsh penalty simply because a family owns property. Now, I'll give you an example, and Carl brought this up at the Planning Commission. There's a 70-acre parcel off of Dilworth Road. Now, that family's been in this township for 70 years, farming. This zoning change proposes to take 9 building lots off of that property if they ever decide to develop it. Now, a building lot just sold on Zinn Road for $225,000, a single building lot. So what you're proposing to do is take away from that family a potential of $2 million. And I can't see how you can do that in clear conscience. I urge the Planning Commission to just leave the zoning alone. Back in 2010, when it was changed, it reduced the building lot. You had an 1.5 acre building lot in R2, you had 2 acres in R1, and that all went up to 2 acres in R2 and 3 acres in R1, and then it gave you the cluster option. When that was done, a lot of people weren't aware that that zoning changed. A lot of people weren't provided the documentation or notifications, and that happened. Now, I haven't had a chance to go around and talk to some of these people to make them aware that this is being proposed. And I'm assuming that if you guys decide to do this, that we would follow through with the notifications to any property that's being affected. But I'm going to urge you to take a step back from this and really think about the impact that this will have on certain families. Again, if you're going to impose this on a handful of people, why is the rest of the township not being held to account, with regards to the impact? Their nest egg, their retirement fund, their estate asset. And I understand Luke brought up the comprehensive plan, and one of the things that all the people wrote in there is they didn't want to see development. Well, they didn't want to see the development. They all want to close the door once they're in, and that's always typical. But it is what we have now is what we have, and I don't want to see us manipulate.
You're into 4 minutes, and I hate to interrupt you.
Okay. Well,
Go
I
ahead, wrap up.
urge the supervisors to take a step back and think about this.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
At minutes of the previous meeting, the Board of Supervisors minutes of October 5th, 2023 AM session. I understand we have,
Yeah, I'd like to make, just add a few comments that I had made based off of the video. So I was gonna see if you guys are okay with just allowing me to provide that to Lisa, I guess by Monday. And as long as it matches up with what I said, then it's fine.
Yeah, you can make comments.
So
It's not a lot, I'm
Yeah.
not doing it verbatim.
we
I'm
can,
just-
pass it per se, but
I would think we can, I would think
approve it.
we can
Well,
approve the
I-
minutes
you know,
subject to your
on
comments.
second
I'm not so
thought-
sure you have to read your comments until they're in the minutes.
Yeah, I think on second thought, if there's no hurry, why don't you just defer it till next
Okay.
month?
Okay.
So everyone can be on the.
So you make your comments, and we all can read it.
Yep.
You don't have to do it here.
Yeah,
It's 2
and then,
weeks
and then
away.
before next meeting.
Right,
Yeah, or well before next meeting, yeah, I'll still do it Monday.
right.
Okay,
Okay.
that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're tabling the approval of the minutes for the meeting of October 5th. Treasury report and authorization to pay bills and approval of payroll. I've reviewed the treasurer's report and the bills and the deposits. And I'll make a motion to approve the treasurer's report, authorize to pay bills and approve the payroll.
And I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, moving on to reports. Township manager's report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I want to start this evening with an acknowledgement of that Chester County has approved the grant reimbursement request from the township for expenses related to our comprehensive plan and official map update. They did so in the amount of $39,714. This award represents slightly over 57% of the reimbursable total project costs, which were $69,500. Both planning documents have been adopted by the Board of Supervisors, and the project, which began in 2021, is now complete. I would like to thank the Chester County Board of Commissioners for funding through the Vision Partnership Program as administered by the Chester County Planning Commission. I'd also like to thank all the township residents who participated in the survey or attended the open house, to the many volunteers on our committees, the Board of Supervisors, our team of consultants, and their staff for their efforts on this massive project. I have a brief update on the Budget Committee. We have some important dates before we must adopt a 2024 budget on the last day of this year. The Budget Committee has been working since June to both solicit and review budget requests from department heads, community partners, and township committees and commissions. Between August and mid-October, the committee met 4 times to hear presentations directly from parties seeking funding. On October 17th, the committee began the difficult work of preparing a balanced draft budget for this board's consideration. The committee will also meet on October 24th and 31st for this purpose. At this board's meeting on November 2nd, the committee will present a draft budget for your consideration. No action from this board will be required until your November 16th meeting, at which time staff will request permission to advertise a preliminary budget as required by the second-class Township Code. The board will be asked to consider resolutions adopting a real estate tax millage, solid waste fees, and the transfer from the general fund to the capital fund at your regular meeting on December 7th. And then finally, the Board of Supervisors will be asked to consider a resolution adopting the final 2024 budget at your meeting on December 21st. The remainder of my report pertains to individual items on the agenda, and I will reserve reading those until those agenda items. Respectfully submitted, Luke Revan, Township Manager.
Thank you. The roadmaster report, I'm sorry, the building inspector's report.
Shall I read that into the record?
Yes.
All right, so the permit activity report for September 2023 is 6 total building permits issued and 3 zoning permits issued. Fees collected for building and zoning permits in September was $2,466.50. There were 18 use and occupancy permits issued, 101 inspections completed with 0 failed inspections. Total fees collected were $2,466.50. Respectfully submitted, Norang King, Permits Administrator.
Thank you. And next is the roadmaster's report.
Thank you. The paving and seal coat for our 2023 paving project is complete. We've received an invoice from Martin Paving Incorporated for $150,178, which is the same amount as their bid. Martin completed seal coat of Timber Pass and the Cumberland Ridge development. We have also received an invoice for payment from Construction Master Services, LLC, for the 2023 road program, which includes fabric and overlay of School Lane, Keller Way, Kristen Circle, La Vita Villa, and Baton Drive in the amount of $497,739.65. The road department has removed the benches and the other structures located at Whitaker Park. We've put them in one of the storage containers over at the maintenance garage. The park, due to its location in a flood zone, continues to flood, causing erosion and damage to the paths. Also, due to the remote location, it's been subject to graffiti on numerous occasions. We hope to relocate the park in the future to the east side of Down Forge Road with parking and a possible pedestrian bridge over the Brandywine Creek. Another announcement is our leaf collection dates for this year are the weeks of October 30th, November 13th, and November 27th. The road department has begun preparing the area for a new restroom located at Phase 1 of the park. This work includes removal of the existing playground equipment, the mulch, and the ties surrounding the playground equipment. We will be excavating for a prefab building and installing, we did install a subsurface BMP for stormwater. We did that yesterday. And other work includes opening trenches for electric and water lines. The final portion of the project will be concrete and asphalt walkways. We've been notified by Green Flush, who is our restroom manufacturer. They will not be able to meet our December 31st deadline for delivery. Excuse me. Our DCNR grant expires at the end of this year. We are writing to DCR for a 12-month grant extension. DCNR stated the extension request must be signed by the person appointed in our resolution, which is Supervisor Scribner. And I respectfully request the board approve the signing of the extension by Supervisor Scribner. My other items will be covered later in the,
Right, it's on the agenda later, right?
yes.
And so is the pump, okay?
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to read the police report into the record?
Well, I'm just checking.
All right.
Here for a second. All right. Yes, if you don't mind. I'll just read the first page.
Very good. Chief Kosi has submitted the following monthly statistics for September 2023. There were total events in East Brandywine Township of 2,244, with 199 investigations completed, 6 criminal arrests, 6 summary arrests, 1 warrant arrest, 11 accidents investigated, 142 traffic citations issued, 40 warnings issued, and total miles of patrol logged of 9,905. Following staff completed training for September, the entire police department completed the Clean Access recertification. Sergeant Jim Ferraro and Detective Kyle Harnish completed less than lethal instruction certification. And Corporal Juan Lemus completed law enforcement firearms optic instructor training. There were no correspondence in this period, and attached to the report is a complete report of investigations and the monthly officer report. Respectfully submitted, Chief of Police Mark Kosi.
Thank you. And Mr. Edwards.
Good evening, Mr.
Fire
Croft.
Company report.
The September report for the East Brandywine Fire Company, 69 total incidents for the month, 34 fire, 35 medical. In East Brandywine Township, we had 15 fire calls, 12 medical calls. We had a total of 11 personnel per call, 16 for major incidents. We had 3 training sessions with 21 folks in attendance with 122 training hours. We participated in Fire Prevention Week, where we saw 3 elementary schools, 2 daycares, and 1 homeschool association, culminating in our open house last night with a nice effort with over 1,000 people in attendance. We have been notified, as I think the township has been notified, that Minquist Ambulance Service is going through some change. They have changed the top supervisory folks, and they have had, unfortunately, to decrease a little bit of level of their service. However, they say it will minimally impact our coverage, which we will automatically be covered by someone if they happen to be out on a call. So if you guys have any questions, their new personnel aren't here tonight, but certainly I may be able to shed some light if you have a question or not.
That's the latest you have on Minquist.
Yeah, they had told us that they have 1 truck up now at Thorndale Station, 1 truck at the Minquist Station, and they're trying to staff a mid-shift truck from like 11A to 11P. But again,
Running 1 ambulance and not 2?
1 in Downingtown, 1 in Thorndale,
Okay.
and 1 in the middle. Yeah.
All right.
So,
Thanks again.
and if I could be excused, go Phillies.
As long as you're leaving. for
No
a
score
fire
in the
company
7th.
function. Old business, duct replacement, police side of the building. Van Loo.
Yes. Staff has not received any proposals for the sealing and insulating of the HVAC ductwork located in the police and administration portion of the building. There have been problems for years with the metal duct sweating during humid summer weather. Earlier this year, we met with the HVAC duct manufacturer that proposed using a foiled wrap foam board system to eliminate the sweating issues. We worked with Pannoni for a solution. They offered their services to design the system and provide bid specifications. Solicitor SD determined the replacement of the ductwork is considered repairs and would not need to be a bid project. Staff is recommending asking Pannoni for an updated proposal for the redesign of the system, and upon acceptance, obtaining pricing for installation.
So we're still in the information stage.
Well, pardon the interruption, Mr. Roadmaster, we had previously advanced to this point and then taken a different approach to rectifying the moisture problem. While staff pursued a solution that was replacement of the duct with a conveyance that was insulated in itself. Expertise on this board recommended that we look at using mastic to seal the joints in the existing ductwork as a solution. We have not received a quote to do that work. And so we're kind of back at square one, and staff is asking for permission to revise the original quote.
Anybody have any objections to that?
No, I think we gotta get a move on with this.
We wasted another
Yeah,
summer.
what, my recommendation would be, allow them to do so, but also ask the previous bidder if they would like to, without changing their specs, give us their new revised number, whether it be lower or higher, and then Pannoni can submit that, and then we work off of, at least for the short term.
I'm not even sure why we need an engineer. Why wouldn't a contractor?
No,
do a design and
I'm
build?
saying, yeah, I agree with you. I don't think we need an engineer either, but I'm saying if we are gonna use Pannoni, or we could use the past,
Right.
bid proposal.
If I may also interrupt just to clarify how it's different this time around from the first time around. The first time around, we were presuming that the project would exceed the state mandated threshold for competitive sealed bids. And so we needed an engineer for the purpose of putting together bid specs. But now, with an interpretation in hand that says replacing your existing ductwork is not an improvement that necessitates sealed bids, we can go more directly this time. It's no longer necessary to put together bid specs.
Yeah.
My only recommendation would be, is that we get it in writing that what work is done is warranted for a set period of time, meaning they put in this cell block, foam ductwork, and then in the summer it starts bleeding already, or sweating rather, and then there's recourse. That would be my only,
Okay. We'll ask for some kind of warranty. I'm sure the cost of that will be passed on, but I think it's worthwhile to ask what kind of warranties.
If they design it and say, look, everybody has humidity problems with their ductwork in the summer if it's in a cool area, right?
right.
I mean, it's not unique to us. So there are many different types of ways of doing it. Our problem is, it's up in the ceiling where it's difficult.
Right.
That's our real problem.
Yep.
So I wouldn't think them guaranteeing that it work gonna cost that much money.
It's either that or we drop our ductwork below, like, commercial application
Right.
in the livable space.
Believe it or not, that's what the school district's doing
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
If you look at
Yep.
the high school expansions and the STEM expansion, saves millions. Okay, so what's the direction to the?
I would say we at the very least go back to the original bidder, and then, for that matter, I don't think we need Pannoni as well. I think you can probably ask Pannoni for three recommendations of companies that do this work, and ask them to bid it out, and I think we could do it in-house. If you call three companies and no one comes out except for the original bidder, then I say we go with the original bidder.
Yeah, we did not have a bid on the project because we never prepared bid specifications or anything. We didn't make it that far in the project.
But how did we get
got
the
a-
original?
We got a price estimate from a contractor that installs this type of system.
How did we get a hold of that? How did we figure them?
I believe that was through the manufacturer of the material, the
Okay.
foam material. So my recommendation is to go to the manufacturer. I'm sure they have three reputable
Agreed.
contractors that
Save
can
the money
do
with Pannoni.
design, build type project.
Yep, I would agree with that.
All right, so that's your direction.
Thank you.
Is that enough?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Oh, you're still up, Mr. Van Loo. Fuel pump purchase.
Sorry, I was taking notes as we're going along. Chief Cosi, Sergeant Tyree, and I met with a representative of Hafer Equipment of Birdsboro for the replacement of the fuel pumps and the card reader system at our fuel station. The estimate for replacement is $87,835. It includes replacing the outdated card reader system with a Gas Boy cloud-based system. The reader will be purchased through Sourcewell, which is a government bidding site similar to CoStar's. The other equipment includes new fuel pumps for both the diesel and unleaded, new gauges, and new plumbing for the entire system. It also includes sludge removal from both tanks. And again, Solicitor Esty has determined that the replacement of the system is considered repairs under the second-class Township Code.
I will add that this is a budgeted expenditure from the township's capital reserve. However, the budgeted amount is $50,000 and the quote we have is $87,000. I nonetheless recommend that we proceed with the replacement of the fuel system. We have an operational system, and this quote is replacement of existing. There's no expansion of the system, just the replacement. The risk we run in further delaying the project is if there is some kind of defect, we will not be able to repair the system or retrieve information about fuel use off of it. It's no longer supported.
It's also been a budgeted issue in the capital fund for at least the last 6 years, not longer. I think that's one of the reasons why it's still at 50,000 versus 2024 cost of 87. There is also some maintenance in there that they're gonna suck all the garbage out of the tank, out of the diesel tank, and
Right.
clean it, which is something that should be done on a regular basis anyway. So, anybody want to make a motion to accept the quotation?
So moved.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
All right, next is grant extension for the community park bathroom.
Yeah, Mr. Van Loo alluded to this necessity of executing a draft letter that's included in your packet and in the folder of information or folder of materials for board signature. We have a grant from the DCNR that expires at the end of the year. We have the manufacturer of a CoStar's prefabricated bathroom who has notified us they will not be able to deliver and install it before the end of the year. So it's necessary to get a head start on making sure that we can keep the money into next year by requesting a grant contract extension. Staff is respectfully asking the board execute the letter in your packet.
Everybody have any questions?
Any questions?
I make a motion that we apply for a grant extension for the community bathroom.
I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Wow, you get to sign the letter because you signed the grant. All right, subdivision and ordinance applications, I see none. Ordinance and resolutions for consideration. Ordinance 5, the non-uniform pension. You want to do that together with 6, ordinance 6, or you want to do them separately?
My presentation will be the same, but your vote will need to be distinct.
Will be just,
Shall I do an introduction to
our
the
vote
matter?
will be separate.
Correct, yeah. You will need two separate votes, but I will not have two presentations, just one. Are we ready?
Yes, you're on.
All right, thank you. So included in your packet this evening are two ordinances revising and restating the township uniformed and non-uniformed pension plans. Unfortunately, I have no comprehensive current plan that I can share with you to which you can compare the drafts to an existing. This is because the current policy exists of a earlier iteration of a revised and restated plan plus all the revisions that have occurred since that adoption. As you can imagine, this makes the administration of the plan very complex because you need to reference a start point and then multiple revisions. So one of the goals of the projects this evening is restating or consolidating all these accumulated changes already in effect into one record. In your packet and in my manager's report, there is a table of all the changes that would be amended under the restating portion of this project. A second goal of the project is to make necessary revisions to the plan. So these are elements that have not previously been voted on by the board, and I'd like to summarize them in both plans for you just briefly. In the uniformed plan, we are recommending a change to the definition of spouse and drop references to opposite sex and the Defense of Marriage Act, which has been overturned by the U.S. Supreme Court. We are recommending adding holiday pay to the definition of compensation, further clarifying Ordinance 7 of 2011. This type of pay was omitted from the existing list of pay types that are eligible for as pension wages. Lastly, in the uniformed plan, we're adding a service benefit increment. This writes into the plan a benefit that first appeared as part of the Police Association's contract, which began on January 2016. In other words, this policy has been in place as a constituent part of our Police Association contract, but has never been transcribed into the pension documents itself. There are two changes to the non-uniformed pension plan. One is similar to a change in the uniform pension plan, which is the definition of spouse. And similar to the uniformed pension plan, the non-uniformed pension plan would revise the types of compensation that count as pension wages. It would remove overtime as pension wages. It would remove unused leave payable at termination from pension wages, and bonuses. So we've got the restating part and the revising part, with that, I guess starting with the first one, I'd respectfully ask that the board. Tom, do you want to make any statements for the record relative to advertising?
Properly advertised and it's ready for enactment.
All right. Well, then at this time, all right, then I would respectfully ask the board consider adopting Ordinance 6 of 2013. Let's start with Ordinance 5 of 2013, amending and restating the non-uniformed pension plan.
2023.
Sure. Whatever decade we are. That's the one I recommend.
Luke is so excited because when I first became a supervisor, it was like on the top of his list. And almost 2 years later, it's finally coming to fruition. So this has been something that has been kind of incorrect in our records for several years, so.
I make a motion to accept ordinance 5 of 2023, the non-uniform pension, with the revisions as stated.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right, now we have Resolution 6. Anybody want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. Yep.
Go ahead.
I'll make a motion to accept ordinance 6 of 2023 police pension with revisions as stated.
I'll second it. Any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Luke.
Administration just got a whole lot easier.
Okay, next is 9C, permission to advertise ordinance 7 of 2023, amending the maximum units allowed in R1 and R2 districts, developed as residential clusters. In your handouts in here, attention. Luke, you want to
Sure.
review your presentation before any of the supervisors make comments?
Yeah, I can't imagine anything we'd rather do during a ball game is listen to a Cardinals fan give a PowerPoint presentation. But here goes. First up, what we discussed, or the action item as it was read aloud by Supervisor, our Chairman Croft, the action item for this evening is actual referral for Act 247 review, not advertising for adoption. So my apologies in the way that's worded on your agenda. The action item, should the board take it, is to refer it for 247 review. I mentioned earlier this evening that we had recently adopted a comprehensive plan. A major part of the comprehensive plan was a survey of our residents. I draw attention to two of the questions we posed. One is, what factors do you think significantly detract from quality of life in East Brandywine Township? Of note, the two that received the most votes for somewhat or substantially detracting from quality of life are the amount of traffic and the amount of residential development. We also posed the question to residents, if given the same number of houses on a given tract, would you prefer that development occur as homes spread evenly over the parent parcel or as clustered together, leaving open space? And there was a slight preference for developing as a cluster. When we talk about a cluster, I've got just a quick illustration that shows the difference. Here is a parent parcel divided into 10 subsections. The one on the left shows a traditional development where the parcel is divided into 10 equal sections. The one on the right shows a cluster where those 10 parcels are much smaller and a portion of the parent parcel is left as open space. Why someone would prefer, and quite honestly, why the Planning Commission prefers the development as clusters is sensitive environmental areas can be left undeveloped. In this illustration, I've added a woods and a stream. Another reason is that you can have amenities like a trail network that are on the open space. Another reason is you may have a sewer disposal area for treated wastewater or common stormwater features on the open space. And then lastly, another reason you might prefer a cluster development is that the total infrastructure necessary to serve the same number of units, infrastructure which may be offered for dedication to a township at a later date, is smaller. So that's why one might have a preference for a cluster over a traditional neighborhood. In examination of our code with Chairman Croft, what we discovered that the code actually allows is not really 10 units spread evenly or 10 units in a corner, but actually, if you elect to develop your parcel as a cluster, you get a density bonus. You get more units than you would get in a traditional development. So what our code actually allows is not the middle section, but the far right section. Instead of 10 units, you get 12 units on a hypothetical 23-acre parcel in the R2 district. In your packet is the redlined versions of the code, and there were literally two simple changes: the swapping out of a ratio from 4.3 in the R1, or 0.43 in the R1, and 0.56 in the R2 for a different density. So what you see in the code is the most simple red line you may ever see. It's just striking through a number and substituting it for another. But this in textual form is a representation of what I just said graphically. Note that this hypothetical 23-acre pre-development parcel allows 10 units as a traditional development or 12 as a cluster development. So that's the background on clusters and the rationale for making a change. If you basically, so there's three options to go from there. We could either in an effort to encourage people to elect the cluster option, continue to allow the code to stand as is, which means we'll get more total houses, but there'll be an additional incentive for for landowners who own more than 10 acres to opt to the cluster. Another option would be to change the multiplier that describes the total number of units to make the cluster unit and the traditional development have precisely the same number of units. Or an option which splits the difference. Those options were presented to the Planning Commission, and the Planning Commission voted to recommend the change that essentially splits the difference. It reduces the number of units that are allowed in a cluster development to an amount that's more than a traditional, but less than the current code. Carl, did you want to take with that as an introduction?
Okay, yes, and it was presented over two different meetings, and the vote was their last meeting, and there were actually two members of the Planning Commission that voted to have no bonus for clusters. So, but there were four that voted to split the difference, as what we're proposing here. And Francis, as a member of the Planning Commission, objected to it, and he presented his case here tonight. And Bruce Rollins. Pardon me? Bruce Rollins as well.
And Bruce Rawlings as well.
Okay. So, just to reiterate, one of the reasons why I was so interested in this and studied it is in being a member of the last two comprehensive planning projects, the one back in 2012, 11, and this current one. I didn't realize that we gave such a large cluster bonus, because as a small-time developer back in the day, I always chose cluster because it's cheaper, even though you got no bonus. And I did do 2 clusters in Wallace Township. In fact, they did their first one ever. I want to just point out that it's been mentioned, but I want to point out again that I opted to propose to the Planning Commission to not take away the complete bonus because of the points that Francis made. I look at the points that Francis made as being hypothetical, and it's hard to me to base our zoning on hypothetical. An example is the Osborne Road subdivision. I forget the name of it, but they got, by going cluster, they would have been entitled to 6 lots. By going cluster, they got 7, and they just happened to fit them in along Osborne Road. And I know in the Planning Commission even recommended to them, why don't you do 6 lots, which you're entitled to. You'll have better lots, you can build better and bigger and more profitable homes. They still chose the bonus. So the other thing that's important is everybody's concerned about impervious coverage and stormwater control, and this will help us with stormwater control. Revin pointed out that it also helps with trail, protecting potential sensitive areas, as well as allowing for sewage disposal in the open areas. So to me, this is a win for the people of the township itself, and I don't think we're harshly penalizing the landowners. For instance, the example that Brashy gave is there's only one parcel that has 70 acres, and that is the Weaver parcel up on Dilworth Town Road. And the example that losing 9 homes is not what we're proposing. They would lose only 6 homes is what we're proposing. So they would be entitled to 33 instead of the 39 now. If you went back to no bonus, they'd be entitled to 30.
How many, you said a handful?
There's approximately 30 parcels in the township.
There is a map in here for you.
I'd rather contact them first.
Well,
And one example that I gave was Weavers, all brought up, but there are other parcels that would have a similar impact. And as when you think about it, again, put yourself in that position. gave my position.
I was gonna, real quick, let me just piggyback off of what he had said. The one thing that's confusing in this is hard to, you gotta literally have it on a blackboard and try and figure it out, but using a property that's, like we use the Zinn Road property, the $225,000. I think that's hard to use as an example, but I will tell you, I'm with you on the other portion, but here's why. The reason why is because that's a parcel that can only be built for one house. So it's hard to decipher if it was broken up for 3 lots or so. Yeah, I would agree with you. Yep. Yep.
Hard pressed to find a building lot
Yep. Now,
for under 200.
the next part of this equation for me is if you have 30 parcels, 30, let's just say 30, properties that we are in contention to this. I'm kind of the mindset, and I don't know if this can be done, Tom can answer this. Can you do a moratorium saying you have 2 years to make a decision to do this? This takes effect immediately, but it's for the 2 years, it's 100% effective for all parcels, and therefore you've given those people a window, and you can't say, I wasn't warned, and we could do a due diligence and send out a letter and say, this ordinance has changed, it will affect your property, you have 2 years to make a change if you so choose. If you don't, this is the worst case scenario.
I suppose you could make an ordinance effective, but it doesn't have to be effective in 30 days. You could make it effective a year from now.
Because
You could do that, but that's very unusual.
I understand both sides of the situation here, but it's also giving some people a window to make a decision to do something.
My concern is that, I didn't want to open up the floodgates here. Things alone, and you start working behind the scenes with somebody, possibly capture those properties in some sort of. Now, when you present it, they're going to have the potential of losing X amount of dollars. Okay, let's say it's $1 million. Let's say it's $500,000. It's still potential of a loss
Sure.
on that potential property in that family. So, I don't know, from a tactical standpoint, that's going to create bigger problems.
It would. In
Yeah,
my experience, it would.
immediately.
As soon as you tell a landowner that
Yeah, as soon as you tell,
zoning's gonna change, they're
Yeah.
gonna try to
You're gonna
run in and do something.
Well-
you're going to flush them out, and they're going to all be rushing to do something.
So the other
We
thing
don't have
is,
any large parcels left like that.
well,
I just realized my house is on here, so if I'm gonna be losing homes, I'm not okay with it.
so the other thing
I'm a
is,
supervisor, I just found out my home's on
the
here.
other thing is,
And I was at the plan commission
we
meeting.
did have a lawsuit years ago with Pulte Homes over the Applecross development when the zoning was changed in the middle of their project. So, obviously, it's a concern.
My approach was to leave sleeping dogs lie,
And I want to speak at some point.
and I tried to express that, to leave sleeping dogs lie. But as you send out the letters to these people, they're going to be coming
Have the
forward.
right, I hope they do come.
Well, I'm just saying that it will have the adverse effect
this is not
that
changing
this
the
zoning
ordinance. This is-
would potentially.
This is simply sending it down to the county for the 247 review. It's the
Well,
first step
eventually-
of a long process.
Eventually, it
And
goes to the next step, Carl.
And you have to be careful when you gave your example. I disagree with your example. You bought a single lot, that lot was approved. When you have a few lots on like a 10-acre parcel, the owner of the land doesn't get what the lots are ultimately selling for. They're getting some predetermined price before approvals and before all the engineering and stuff. So you can't look at what a lot sells for.
There's still a multiplier.
Yes, but it's a multiplier of 1, 2, or 3. Because that's what the average does. Look, if I've probably attended, I was on the planning commission for 5 years, and I've attended probably, in the 2 years I've been a supervisor, 20 meetings. I've missed one, I think. And everybody talks about stormwater control, trails, too high a density. Everybody talks about that, every member on the planning commission. Here was a way to try to seek a middle ground, to solve those problems, and not take away. Don't forget, we gave that 30 years ago. Maybe we shouldn't have done it, but we can't go back and undo something from 30 years ago.
No, it's
So
too-
I was trying to have a modifier here, since all the big parcels, other than that 170-acre piece, is spoken for. You have some big blotches up here, but these are individual lots. So it wasn't trying to take money from people, it was trying to make a more orderly development process. The number of roofs do need to be reduced. Want to control stormwater. So,
But the double edge to that sword is Brandywine Township, and we're doing the right thing. We're doing the right thing, but other townships are less and less and less, and therefore our residents are penalized when other townships don't.
how are we, well,
For stormwater, that is, allowing more or less. But,
right, we are penalized.
yep. I mean, as of today, I'm just gonna go on record and say, as of today, I'm not 100% ready to make a decision on this particular plan as is, but you and Jason can have a vote. I'm not ready 100% right now, though. I just, even though it's just going to, the Act 240, I still think I want to feel comfortable that going forward with it, that we're not opening up Pandora's box.
And
Why don't we send letters out to the homeowners and just invite them to a planning commission meeting? Thought that we should do that anyway.
May I speak to the map that's here? Okay, so I just want to speak to what Supervisor Winter say. I'm just discovering that my house is on here. I will point out that this map here didn't exist before today.
Oh, okay.
So this has never been before the Planning Commission either. Using ArcView, I selected all parcels that were over 10 acres, and then I cut out parcels that are not in the R1 or R2 districts, where there is no proposed change. And I also struck all parcels that enjoy some kind of protection from development and through the open space program. So what's left here, I cannot speak to the development potential of these parcels, but this is parcels that are potentially affected by the change. And I'd exercise some caution in interpreting that these are the parcels that are precisely affected by the change. I would point out that in some instances there are environmental conditions such as steep slopes or riparian buffers or wetlands that would make the gross lot area smaller. So this is just net lot area of 10 acres. So we just, the point of this exhibit was simply to show how many people are potentially affected by the change that the board is considering. And then I would also add that I think it's important to mention that my role as manager here is to help people understand what the policy of the township is, and to help those decision makers who are interested in amending it put meat on the bones of a proposal to amend it. My perspective as an administrator is that we, just like the survey showed, very frequently hear complaints about the amount of residential development. And for the most part, our answer to that is we cannot deprive the landowners of their right to develop their tract into houses per our code. We literally can't say no to a plan that conforms to our zoning. That said, there are some things that we as a local government, using the municipality's planning code, can amend that has an effect on how many homes we get. And this is one of those things. So you're right, we can't stop a farm from developing, but we can stop, we could have 6 lots instead of 7, and we could have 10 lots instead of 12, which are just small changes that are, well, they're significant to those who have made investments in our community and relied on assumptions about the development potential of their parcels. That is acknowledged and is an inevitable part of changing the code, either in bulk density or uses. Every time we alter the code, it has positive or negative effects on the landowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I think in order to, since this is simply the first step, I personally would like to, you know, you have to go through and notify everybody. You're going to have to let them come and speak. So I simply want to start the process. This might be a 6-month, 8-month, 9-month process. So not to start the ball, I think is wrong. Is wrong. I think we should start the ball.
But what
Why
is,
would we do that? We'd have,
Why not?
why wouldn't we? I mean, why
Well,
put
when
cart
you-
before the horse?
when
what
you
is the biggest, just out of curiosity, the biggest,
rush?
is it stormwater management? Because if it's stormwater management, we can address stormwater management with every resident, and then every resident is penalized. If it's not stormwater that's what I'm trying to figure out, like, what's the
big rush?
no, what's the highest priority for it?
Well, I don't have to me, it's the open space which begets better stormwater control. To me, it's the open space, it's the potential for the trails is the lowest, but the open space stormwater trails, if you want. But I'm also trying to serve the constituents based on that excellent survey. I mean, we had like a 58% response.
Yeah, but the question wasn't posed, are you in favor of taking away people's retirement? I think a lot of people would say no.
Well, and I don't
I
think,
think
I
100% would say no.
Jason, that's
But
totally
that's theoretical,
hypothetical.
though. Hey, you're
Right.
doing theoreticals, I'm gonna talk to you about theoretical, that's all.
yeah, I agree, we
That's what I'm
can't
saying.
bring the monetary values into it. But, I would say, I understand both sides. I understand getting something on the board for the Act 240, but on the same token, I don't want to mislead them. As is, I'm not 100%, I think there's some tweaking that can be done. As I said earlier, I would tell you I would be okay if it was a 2-year moratorium where people understood they had 2 years to do something. I would be okay with putting that in there and getting it to the Act 240, but not obviously going forward with anything. But, you know, again, it would be putting changes into a form that's kind of sketched out already.
If I could just note 2 things. Chairman indicated we'd have to notify people. That if we decided to notify people, we could. But this is not a zoning map amendment, so we would not have to notify all the property owners. Second thing is you might want to consider is sending it to the county for 247 review will enable comment by the Chester County Planning Commission on the concept, which might be helpful in your consideration.
Right, I should have mentioned that. That's what I wanted, their input.
Well, I care more about homeowners' opinions than the county, so.
And I understand that.
And here's the end all be all.
Because the county doesn't really do that, I mean, no offense, county, but they don't really do that good of a review.
Well, they, sometime, in years past, I have to say, very few substantive comments came from the county, but recently, there have been. Something has changed where they make substantive comments.
And I know, Luke, you alluded to it, but the minutes for the agenda state today's an ordinance resolution consideration, and it really isn't. And I think that's not doing us any justice either. It's muddying the
Right,
waters.
it's mistyped, right.
Right, but, no, I'm not blaming Luke, but what I'm saying is,
But you can blame Luke, because it's Luke's fault.
no, what I'm saying is,
One more thing, as well.
it's not a resolution, and it's not taking a binding effect today. It's just going to the county, which I think is, you know,
Right, to me, you don't lose
a
anything.
dodge bullet.
Right, but you don't lose anything going to the county.
Right, yeah, and as I said, I don't have a problem going to the county, I want to be clear. As this is written right now, I'm not a fan of it, and I'm not in favor of it, as it's written right now. But if it, you know, goes to the county as is, I want to be clear as a bell that there's tweaking that needs to happen, that's all.
What tweaking? I mean,
Well, it's a 7-page report, I couldn't tell you, but I could tell you,
but there's only one number. The only change was the 10%.
yeah.
Everything else,
Let's
correct?
let's just reach out to
Well,
them right now.
but not necessarily, because one change could turn into 7 changes when you really sit down and think about things, and that's where I'm going with it. Just adding a simple moratorium to a 2-year period, that would be another change. Yeah, there would be several changes if I
All right,
did.
if I could get a second vote, I'd still like to get the 247 review while we work on getting input.
And I'll give you the second vote on that, but that's as far as I would go, so.
Okay, well,
yep,
that's
yep.
all,
Yep.
that's all we're expected to do tonight.
Well, I think we should just talk to the homeowners first, but, so.
And again,
I'm
we're
against
not doing anything, this is just going to the county.
Yeah, no,
so-
but why waste the county's time then if we're not okay with it now?
Yep.
Because if you don't start something, it never gets done.
Well,
One
why
way or the
start
other. I mean,
I agree
even
with you, but I'm just saying, I
even
think-
if it's dropped.
Okay, you got the second, so you're good.
All right, so I make a motion that we send, we advertise ordinance 7 of 2020,
No,
not
it's not
advertise.
a- it's-
We send to the count, whatever the proper wording is.
Make a motion to authorize Luke to send this ordinance to the county planning commission for Act 247.
Right, and in a friendly amendment, authorize the solicitor to produce the cover letter for the redlined code. The cover ordinance is not
Yeah,
written.
right, I will do that.
Now, while that's going on, what would you like
Well,
us to do?
At the very least, as I said,
Oh, first of all, that's
You
the
need to-
motion.
you need to
I'll make the
vote on it.
motion.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed?
I couldn't give you those answers right this second.
No, I know.
I need some time, and I'll be honest with you, I've gotten 2 phone calls from this, and typically when you get phone calls from things like this, people are concerned, and I might get phone calls once a year, you know what I mean?
No, I know, and
So-
I actually, after the planning commission meeting, received positive phone calls, and I've never got that.
Yep.
So, all right, why don't,
Yeah, we'll
right,
yeah.
you meet with Luke and.
Yep, yep.
Right, because I'm open to any suggestions. I think, in my mind, I think I'm doing what
But let me ask you
the
a question.
township
though.
was the.
If you're here for your constituents, are you only here for your constituents in the other zoning districts? I mean, 10 acres, or why are we just picking this area? That's what you guys keep
Because
saying,
that's
I'm
the
here for
current
those
ordinance.
residents.
That's
But
what-
why?
that-
You're
that's-
picking one zone, do it overlay across the whole township then.
Right, do what?
An overlay like this in the whole township, or any cluster of homes over 10 acres.
Well, I can,
How many other homes are there in other part, in R3 or, in R3 and,
We're not doing anything in R3.
I don't know, why not?
It's not permitted in R3.
Well, why isn't it? If you
Because
want
they
to see
have,
the open space.
because they have lots of other breaks. Right, that's the problem. We don't, the TND in R3 doesn't promote open space or even proper stormwater control. We let everybody invade the riparian buffer. Part of this is to try to stop that.
I know, and as I say, it's a double-edged sword, and I think Jason hit the nail on the head, or maybe it was Francis, that some people are penalized and others aren't, and in a roundabout way, it is true, but I think there's a amicable solution someplace, but anyway, we're good.
Right, we're just taking baby steps.
Yep.
All right. Public comment on non-agenda items. Notices, no executive sessions have been held between Friday, 10/6/20 of 2023, and the PM session on 10/19/23. An executive session will follow this meeting to discuss real estate matters. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.